Hello everyone, I'm Ethys, and this video is going to be a dissection and analysis of the Stormblood benchmark, which became available just this morning, April 28th, following the airing of Letter from the Producer Live number 35. We're going to run through the footage of the scenes previewed in the benchmark with pretty frequent stops and detours for what I personally thought were worthwhile discussion points, so I hope you find it illuminating. If you have not yet run the benchmark yourself, you can find a link in the description below, but for now, we're going to dive straight in. Baylander is of course here training at the foot of the statue of Rhalgr at Rhalgr's Reach, previewed in the official Stormblood trailer, and it's awesome to see the monk AF3 here rendered in-game. The pre-Garland Alamegan military included a large standing force of lancers and griffin-back cavalry pikemen. It seems that this martial preference has been carried forward by the resistance. The conspicuous absence of any monks in this scene other than the Warrior of Light seems to support the popular belief that no remnant of the Fist of Rhalgr survived Theodoric's purges save Vidargelt, and that he, his disciples, Lys and the Warrior of Light are the last and only vestiges of Girabunyan monkhood. Here we see some companions of the Warrior of Light dressed in the Paladin, Bard and Scholar AF3. We'll get a better look at all of the AF3 later in the video. There is clearly some kind of engraving written on the shrine to Rhalgr, and although the resolution here is insufficient to make much sense of it, there are a few legible phrases in the Eorzean alphabet, as you can see. An expeditionary force made up of primarily Highlanders with a smattering of Midlanders and Mikote marches out of Rhalgr's Reach at first light, and it has to be said that the dynamic lighting here looks very impressive. On the far side of Belsar's wall, the woods rapidly give way to dusty highlands, and it is here, on the western side of a bridge which forges the Veladina River, that we see the resistance skirmishing with an Imperial force. First new job ability we see is a gap closer for the warrior. It could be a cross-class shoulder tackle taken from Monk and added to the revamped cross-class system, but the unique effect makes me think that this is most likely a new warrior ability. Then we see a machinist here using an AoE flamethrower ability, and an astrologian playing with two new cards, the Lord and the Lady. These, along with the Knave, are the face cards of the deck of 60, from which the 6 cards that the astrologian currently uses are drawn, and as face cards you can imagine that they will have some pretty powerful effects. The Warrior of Light takes out a masked soldier clad in armor that is certainly not Garland, but seems to be, in fact, the same that the newly introduced Fordola wears in the concept art, most likely the standard uniform of native Alamegan conscripts. Now this might be reading things a little deep, but the Red Mage does not march out of Rhalgr's Reach with the resistance, and seems to be not so explicitly associated with Alamigo. The early 6th Astral era was typified by the outlaw and purging of magic users. But we know that red magic sprouted in this time from a community of black and white mages from Mark and Amberpole respectively, surviving together in a Blathier spine. They would have insulated themselves from the Highlander tribe that would become Alamigo, and probably continue to do so long after the Alamegans subjugated and united the region. Suppose we'll find out soon enough. Either way, we have a common enemy in the Garlands, as too do the Ananta, whom we can see in the background here, also supporting the resistance in the fight against the Empire. The monk has a new flashy ability here preceding a tornado kick, which seems to imply that it instantly builds greased lightning stacks. Not the most effective use of such a skill to instantly spend those stacks, but pretty interesting nonetheless. While many of the Magitech enemies here we have encountered before, there are a few new to be seen, including this reimagining of the Magna Rhoda from Final Fantasy VI. More Alamegan conscripts and Garlean mounted soldiers join the fray, and the resistance turns to face. The Warrior of Light's party lands in colourful Kugane and the vessel docked behind them leads me to hope that we are not in fact arriving in Othard by the same means by which Gosetsu left, specifically in a rowboat. Kugane uses their state iconography as much as the Charlanes use their logarithmic spiral, and it is clearly derivative of the Manji or Brahmin swastika, but they also employ in their architecture a great deal of other symbols and murals which I couldn't even begin to unpack in this video. Another point of note is that although the population distribution of Koshu seems to lean as expected towards a Midlander and Aura-Rayan majority, there are plenty of Rogadans around and even a few Lullafels. Maidens, Mughals, and a dead Lala frolic in the shadow of the great Jenga Tower of the Bay of Yangtze. Below the surface, however, although we have been assured that there will not be underwater combat, I can't help but wonder if that just means we can't fight back against all the things that are going to mess us up down here. And you may not have noticed Uncle Alti, but he definitely noticed you. We told you, dude, no underwater combat. As the Warrior of Light glides by on Nessie, we can see behind him one of the bubble domes that we will see in just a moment, almost certainly the homes of the Kojin beast tribes. And they really did promise no underwater combat. In Yangtze proper, if we look past the shameless Mount Epine, we see a statue of some kind of deity, patron, or perhaps even the former ruler of Doma, and a Fenrir reskin which is either a fate boss or else a hunt mark. The Great Magitek Gate, which we have seen in previous screenshots, appears to separate the old and largely decimated coastal region of Doma from the Imperial Province, and it is taken out here by none other than the Kojin, mounted on giant manta rays. The way the light refracts across the arena and the structure behind Susano Callaway here makes me pretty confident that this instance takes place in the grand underwater dome briefly teased in the official Stormblood trailer. More importantly, the Kojin's primal appears flanked by Yojimbo and his pet Daigoro, fan favorite Final Fantasy X cameo, without which many people would have found Stormblood unacceptable. This sequence also shows off several new job abilities. The Black Mage fires off some kind of void flare, the Scholar has Eos's ether explode into the Dark Knight, the Bard uses some kind of crazy arrow terror flare, the White Mage and Paladin seem to chain abilities for a holy spell, the Dragoon expels draconic ether in some kind of ranged diving gear Skogul, the Ninja Naruto's a Battletoad out of hammer space, and the Dark Knight uses a targeted defensive cooldown to allow the Samurai to completely ignore a direct hit from the boss. And then we have an obligatory preview of the Samurai Limit Break, and all in all, it looks pretty great. Ignoring the paltry performance of the PC I'm using here in LA for now, the final shot gives us all a pretty good look at the AF3 for every job, excluding the Monk, which we got an eyeful of at the beginning of the benchmark. So that's it from me today. I hope I managed to answer some questions and point out some details from the benchmark preview you might have otherwise missed. Early access for Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood begins on June 16 for those of you who have pre-ordered, so I hope to see you all back on Hydaelyn very soon. Until then, like and subscribe for more Final Fantasy XIV videos and analytic previews as we march towards Alamigo, and until next time, I'm Ethys. Thanks for watching.